Scott Ritter reports on the MQ-9 Reaper crash off Crimea. The maritime environs of Sevastopol have been under the watchful eye of all kinds of U.S. intelligence since the first day of our special operation in Ukraine. But since the morning of March 14, 2023, the U.S. has been targeting there in general with everything at its disposal. Because it was from that time that the Black Sea Fleet forces, about 60 kilometers from their main base, began an emergency search and rescue operation that directly affects the strategic interests of NATO as a whole. About what exactly happened on Tuesday over the Black Sea, as stated in a statement by U.S. Air Force Europe and Africa Commander Gen. Hecker, at about 7:03 a.m. said, "The whole world is now intensely guessing." This topic is on the front pages of the leading publications of most countries today. According to the United States, their huge 11 meters long and 20 meters wingspan MQ-9 Reaper reconnaissance drone was quietly patrolling the Crimean coast as it has done in recent months. Suddenly a pair of Russian Su-27 fighters approached their almost harmless Reaper, flying at an altitude of 25,000 feet, about 7.6 kilometers. And it began. According to the Pentagon, trying to throw the MQ-9 off course, the planes of the Russian Air Force began to maneuver dangerously and unprofessionally. They approached at a distance of almost an outstretched hand between the wings. Taking advantage of their speed advantage, they stepped forward several times and dropped tons of kerosene from their fuel tanks along the course of the drone in order to make it difficult for the American operators at the Ramstein military air base in Germany, who were operating the drone, to see it on television. Then, as if one of the dryers had gotten so close to the Reaper that in some unknown way it damaged its propeller. This led to the downing and total loss of the MQ-9, General James B. Hecker points out. Such a version seems utter nonsense. If only because the only propeller on this type of UAV is made a push propeller. And it is located at the rear of the American aircraft. In addition, it is located between the two vertical tail keels. That is why only Hecker knows how the heavy Su-27, with its weight in its loaded state exceeding 20 tons, could damage it so accurately at high speed without wrecking the UAV. The version of Moscow looks fundamentally different. It was voiced by the Ministry of Defense on the same day. The gist of it: in the morning of March 14, an American UAV flight was recorded near the Crimean Peninsula in the direction of the Russian state border. The U.S. drone flew with its transponders turned off, violating the boundaries of the airspace use area. After the U.S. drone was detected, fighter jets were in the air. As a result of sharp maneuvering, the U.S. drone went into uncontrolled flight with loss of altitude and collided with the water surface. Russian fighters did not use onboard weapons, did not come into contact with the drone, and returned safely to their home airfield. All in all, there will probably be a long and tedious interstate trial between Moscow and Washington. In any case, the fact of the downing of the top-secret MQ-9 Reaper right under the flank of Sevastopol does not cause any doubts. The same as the fact that the Black Sea Fleet will absolutely do everything to raise to the surface any fragments of this most modern transoceanic vehicle for close study of our scientists and designers. Moreover, to all appearances, just in several hours after the accident, the vessels of the 145th Rescue Detachment of the Black Sea Fleet, based in the Strelitskaya Bay of Sevastopol, had already arrived to the fall of the UAV and started their work. Probably, the forces of the main Department of Deep Water Works, MDWW, of the Russian Defense Ministry will soon arrive there from Novorossiysk and Temryk. More than others of them in this case, most likely, we will be helped by the test ship Challenger of Project 11982, launched in 2011 in Kaliningrad. Because it's the only one at the Black Sea equipped with dynamic positioning thrusters. In other words, Challenger is able, not yielding to the currents and winds, to stay exactly above the place where divers and deep-sea submersibles work in the sea abyss for hours. The technical ability of rescue personnel of the Black Sea Fleet and crews of Googie vessels to detect anything at great depths in these waters was confirmed in December 2016 near Sochi, where the Challenger, as well as the special-purpose tug Afelina of Project 16609 and the Project 90600 RB-45 tug Crab were searching for fragments of a Tu-154 passenger plane flying to Syria but crashed the same month due to overload and crew error. Anything possible then the Googie sailors picked up and handed over to the investigation. There is reason to believe that this will happen this time as well. What's more, some of the fragments of the MQ-9 Reaper that went down on Tuesday are already in our hands. This is evidenced by the fragments of radio conversations of Russian rescuers in the area of the crash that leaked into the web on the same day. They are short, so it won't take much space to quote them from the War Whistleblower Telegram channel. A part of the object was lifted. What is this part? Over. Represents the casing of the internal combustion engine. All of this is very sensitive and extremely unpleasant for the United States. The most frustrating thing for them, they can do nothing to prevent the search of the Russians. Because they do not have anything substantial for this purpose in the Black Sea basin. At the same time, the US has allegedly taken measures to prevent the American drone MQ-9 Reaper, sunk in the Black Sea, from falling into the wrong hands. White House spokesman John Kirby has already announced about it. According to him, the United States has taken steps to protect its property. Obviously, we don't want anyone but us to get it, Kirby stressed. But what can his country really do? According to Military Review, by Tuesday evening, NATO aircraft, including an Italian Air Force G550 Key long-range radar detection aircraft, as well as a P-8A Poseidon, were flying into the area of the UAV crash. Soon a couple of Romanian helicopters were spotted there as well. All these machines circled sorrowfully over the point where Russian ships and vessels had already begun to assemble. They flew away, empty-handed. Which was to be proved. What will the United States lose if we get the main secrets of this particular Reaper? The $40 million that each such vehicle costs is, in principle, a trifle compared to the military events taking place in and around Ukraine. So is the loss of the long-known MQ-9. Because at different times and places they were shot down during reconnaissance missions. The Libyans and the Afghans too. Due to power problems alone, and between April 2013 and December 2015 alone, the US Army lost 13 MQ-9 Reaper Block 1s. In their wreckage, therefore, probably everyone who is not lazy has been digging around. In our case the main thing is different. Most likely at the bottom of the Black Sea near Sevastopol parts of the newest UAV MQ-9 Reaper Block 5 are buried. It is the latest modification of this model that was adopted in 2007. Since then it has been supplied to the troops with the latest software and updated reconnaissance modules. Perhaps it is not only Moscow that would like to become better acquainted with them, but also Beijing and Tehran. And why shouldn't we do them this favor, to spite the United States? At least this is an indication of how undesirable such a turn of events would be for Americans. On June 15, 2021 in the overseas media appeared reports that the operators of MQ-9A Reaper, the newest modification of the 214th Squadron from Davis-Monthan Air Base, had issued a command to intentionally destroy the aircraft in an unknown part of Africa. This happened after a fuel leak was discovered in flight from the aircraft. The control room thought the drone could fall into the wrong hands in the event of a forced landing. To avoid this, they decided not even to try to save it. They just crashed the UAV to the ground so that no bones would be picked. So then the initiative came from the US itself. And crashing the machine to the ground is much more reliable than losing it in the depths of the sea, as just happened near Sevastopol. So now in the pursuit of the Reaper secrets, all trump cards are in the hands of the Russian Googie. And this is very bad news for Washington. And in the meantime, it looks like the Americans are trying to do the only thing in their power to prevent the Russians from lifting and studying the wreckage of the Reaper that crashed near Crimea. They are aware that only an urgent transfer of some of the warships of the 6th U.S. Navy from the Mediterranean to the Black Sea could help them. In any case, the sudden appearance of, say, a pair of Arleigh Burke-type destroyers with Tomahawks on board in the area of search and rescue operations would greatly complicate the work of our deep-sea divers. If it would not disrupt them at all. The only obstacle to the United States is the position of Turkey, which, in accordance with the well-known Montreux Convention, closed the Bosporus and the Dardanelles to the passage of warships of any nationality when the hostilities in Ukraine began. But from the point of view of Washington, if we give a good twist to Ankara, which is a NATO member after all, it is possible to lift this ban as an exception. At least for the time being. In any case, on Wednesday there were reports in the press that on the US initiative it had begun intensive diplomatic consultations with the Turks on this matter.